Well, and I give my wife all the credit or so much of the credit with our daughters, but she grew up in an environment with a sister about the same age. And there was a lot of friction and a lot of arguing and pretty common among siblings. I look at my daughters, they're 2 years apart. I don't know that I've ever seen them fight. And they're now almost 30 and 28 or 29 and 27. And they're best friends, and they have been their entire lives. And so, yeah, that level of support and endorsement and promotion and camaraderie, and that works in families, and it works really well in business as well.
Welcome to the CEOpeek show, where we uncover the essence of extraordinary leadership by interviewing CEOs with over 90% approval ratings on Glassdoor. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the CEOpeek. I am Dave Osh, and I'm really honored to be here with Anthony Romano, the CEO of CREtelligent. Hi, Anthony.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me. Look forward to speaking with you.
I just looked at again to make sure that we invited the right person, that you have 100% approval rate on Glassdoor. That's why we invited you. And the company has 4.7 stars on Glassdoor, which is pretty high. I read actually some of the comments of people that gave reviews to the company about open leadership and feel kind of heard. And what would be a good place for us to kick off the conversation today?
Yeah, well, that's probably a good place, not the 100% rating, but what was put in place in order to achieve that. And CREtelligent is a business that's been around since the beginning of 2019, right? And we're provide a commercial real estate due diligence via a platform called Radius. And many of us came from a background in data and analytics and software businesses in real estate, a company called CoreLogic, and then First American. And so much of what I learned about culture and ethos and setting vision and strategy, I'm just thankful to the gang at First American who did that really well and had a very much a sort of a people first mentality and really put the employee at the center to be able to drive wins for the client and ultimately for the investor. And we built the same roadmap here, and it's really paid off.
So when you say people first, what do you mean by people first? And how do you take it out of the cliche into culture? Everybody say people first, and then the first challenge they have, people are the first to go out.
No, I think, well, so let's talk about people to begin with. If you think about all the constituents of a business, employees and vendors and clients and partners and investors, they're all people. I think when I think people first, very specifically for us, it meant we've gotten venture capital and private equity money, and we've got investors that matter. We certainly have clients that matter, but at the top of the list, we really put the employee. And our feeling was, boy, if we could hire the right people. And so we spend a tremendous amount of time on interviewing and hiring. I'm involved in all of that personally. If we could ensure that we build the right processes, that we have the right pay plans and the right bonus plans, and we put all the wellness programs together. If we made this just a great place to work where people felt like they're having their fingers and their fingerprints on really transforming an industry, then those people would take a bullet for a client. And as the client experiences that level of really high service, then they wind up doing more with us from a product solution and service, from a revenue standpoint. And then at the end of the day, the investor wins in that order. And what I had seen in my career was often the investor was like the first constituent, and you started with financials. And we sort of took a page out of Dan Gilbert's playbook at Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans. And he says, money and numbers follow, they don't lead. So if your vision, if your strategy is X amount of revenue or X amount of EBITDA or X amount of cash flow, that's actually the result of a great vision and strategy. And we ran that same play here.
I love this insight. Actually, when I think about what you said, is like people really like leading indicator in the business, while finances are actually lagging indicator. I never thought about it that way, that actually the notion of what is that people are, you can design the organization to be successful by hiring the right people, training them. And one more thing that you said about, I find stakeholders such a cold word to use, and you use people and you relate to each one of them, clients, customers, investors, people. And I think that was very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I mean, obviously the client is incredibly important to what we're doing. And just like you talk about Glassdoor, we do a similar thing. We've done it for the last 4 years called Net Promoter Survey, NPS. And we take that survey with our clients twice a year, and their feedback, not just the score, but their feedback incredibly seriously. It drives our roadmap. It drives our development. We've gone from a good score in an NPS. If you listen to private equity, they say we don't invest in a business that doesn't have an NPS score of 50. We started at a 66. Today we're at an 81. And I don't say that arrogantly, but I don't know of many firms that are higher. And I think I just give that back right back to the people piece, right? Our team understands what our clients are trying to accomplish. And when you lean in and you help your customers get it done, then you become an invaluable business partner and vendor. So we pull our customers and we pull our team internally.
That's amazing. I used NPS all the time, all these when I was a CEO in a company and even in my small business right now. I use NPS after workshops, after offsites. And it's such a small thing to implement. It's just like nothing. And it's so powerful because people that are not familiar with that, it's like what you see in consumer survey, like, will you recommend business on a scale of 1 to 10? But if you are low, it gives you a negative. So when Anthony mentioned 50 or 80, this is like super high. So it's very difficult to get like companies like Apple, even I'm not sure they have 50.
Yeah, I mean, and in a technology company, I've seen it, and we benchmark ourselves across a number of different groups. And yeah, we're super proud that we're that high. We don't think it's an accident because of all the programs we put in place. But yeah, to your point, when Fred Reichel developed NPS when he was at Bain Company, we devoured it back in the day on what customer sat meant, and really what you were after was customer loyalty. And NPS does such a good job documenting that. And if you think about investors as they look at a company like ours, things like gross revenue retention and net retention and churn rate, those are important metrics. And generally speaking, when you have high NPS, those usually are pretty darn good. So yeah.
So do you apply it also with your employees?
We do. I think our ENPS score maybe was a 52, which we thought we were sitting in the mid 40s, and it kind of had to be 30 and above. I mean, literally, we've had investors as they approach the business ask for both the client and internal, the ENPS, because that was such a strong indicator of how their other portfolio companies performed. And so, yeah, we take it super serious. And
cool. Actually, I never thought about doing it with employees. I think that is kind of really awesome. So guys, you people that listen now to the podcast, think about if you haven't applied NPS, do it today. It's so easy. In SurveyMonkey, actually, it comes free. You don't need it. It's automatic, actually. But ENPS, that's really cool to have it with your employees and to get the score. And at least you have a measure to see how you get from here to there to whatever you want to reach with that. So
yeah, no, 100%. We do a monthly all company town hall and huddle via Zoom. And right after each one of those huddles, we pull the team. I mean, are we real clear on the vision? Does everybody get the strategy? Do you understand how your 9 square feet in the world fits toward and helps drive that strategy? Does leadership have a clear plan? Do you have any feedback? So we try to get as much feedback, because if we're not all rowing in the same direction and you've got people that are not clear on the strategy and tactics, then you don't perform as well. So yeah, it works.
one interesting thing I do with the leadership team, senior leadership team that I coach, I ask them to write on paper if you are face to face or on Zoom in the chat. Everybody quotes the company's vision and they wait for me, and then they send it at the same time. If I have 5 people in the room or 5 people on Zoom, I will have 5 different answers. It's quite fascinating, actually, how people interpret that differently. Vision, strategy, values, you name it, almost everything. There is a lens that we add to that. And how that survey helps you to see that they are really aligned, because it can give you, hey, we do it well, but how do you ensure that they're all aligned to that, to what you want to accomplish?
So we kick off every single one of those monthly meetings with our value, our strategy, and our brand promise. And we have somebody else in a different functional area each time not only read it, but talk about how in their area they are aligned and the things that they're doing match. We have what we call strategic pillars, and there are 5 of them that since 2019 have driven the business, the areas that we focus on the most. And if we're doing things that aren't inside of one of those pillars, then we stop doing it because it's a distraction. But the foundation underneath all those pillars, and we represent it in kind of a Thomas Jefferson looking structure, is those notion of values, of customer success, of results driven, of collaboration, of inclusion. And for us, the fifth, a big one, is wellness. A bunch of us we were athletes and marathon runners and cyclists. And I just think that if you're not sleeping right, if you're not eating right, if you're not working out, if you don't have some kind of mindfulness practice, at some point, you're not going to be very good. So we spend a lot of time giving people not only the tools and education, but giving them the time to pursue those things. You ultimately find that maybe their work hours are a little less, but their output in terms of performance and productivity is off the charts. And so we take that serious and we focus on it every month in that huddle.
And I don't know any one of my clients that I heard that the companies are doing so. Even I have 3 kids, 2 of them in tech, one of them worked for a large company. And yes, I get a wellness budget and spending whatever. So I buy a gym membership, which he doesn't use. And it's very different than the company really involved and encourages people to take care of their well-being, both emotionally and physically, right?
To me, it's just intuitive. It stands to reason. What you really want is, you don't measure activity, you measure results. What you want is the performance and productivity. And the number of we watch diminishing returns as you start doing 50 and 55 and 60 hours a week, diminishing returns of performance and productivity. So if we can achieve that, it's not quite Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week, but boy, in 40 or 50 hours a week, you can get a lot done and you can be very successful and accomplished and still have a balanced life. So my wife will say, you worked 70 hours this week. And I'll say, look, there's 168 hours in the week. I have 98 for you. I don't know what the problem is. So you got to be balanced no matter what your role in the company is.
I totally buy into that. Also, looking back into my career, I don't think I was really good at that level to take care of all those domains of my employees. Some of them, yes, but here it's very holistic approach, actually. Think about if you have a sports team and you look at your team as a sports team and you want each one of them to be in peak performance. That means you want them to rest, they want them to not to burn out, not to overtrain, to have nutritious food, and so on and so forth. And we don't treat employees and leaders in this way.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. The sports analogy, we use it all the time. And I think you're spot on. That's kind of been our focus, and culturally it fits. And if folks are not comfortable with that, we learn that pretty early in interviews, and we share a lot of this stuff up front. We try to err on the side of over communicating this during interviews. And usually people that land want to be part of something like that, right? Not just a company that's helping to transform an industry in commercial real estate, but this is an at-will employment. We all get to decide where we want to work. And so having a place that you like being part of, you like the team, you like the culture, and it's been great.
Changing subject, when we checked in, you mentioned that your childhood was very near where I'm living in East Bay Area. And then you went to college and graduated from Sacramento State University and stay since then in that area. What is that because I'm curious about that. What is that sense for you to be in the same area for so many years? The sense of groundness and connection. And I'm very curious about it because I didn't have that. I left originally from Israel. I left there and moved to Hong Kong, and then from there to Singapore, and then to Malaysia, and then to the United States, all countries that I had never been even before. and there's a lot of loss in terms of every time that you move, it's just like you lose everything and you need to rebuild from scratch. Some connections I have, but it's very different. And I'm curious, what is that to be on the other side of that, of being in the same area, living in the same area, working in the same area where you studied and grew up?
It's a great question. I think it was a big advantage. I mean, what you just described in your journey, I'm sure there's incredible insights there, but challenging in that you don't have that sense of community and family. I have my 2 best friends on the planet are from 7 or 8 years old today still, and love the Bay Area. But when I finished school here, I actually met my wife in high school. We both went to Sacramento State together. And then post-college, we got married. So we've had 40 some odd years together. We love this area. And people say, tell me about Sacramento. And it used to be, well, it's an hour and a half from San Francisco. It's an hour and a half from Tahoe. It's an hour from Napa. But look, over the last 25 years, this area's done incredibly well. Economically, school growth, business growth, lots of migration from Southern California and into this area. So it's been an advantage to be in this market and to have, I mean, I can tell you the people that I started working with, out of college at IBM, they were my colleagues in the next 2, 3, 4 companies that I started. That's a big advantage if you go back to the people and the employee being the key advantage. Getting right people on the bus is a big deal. So folks that I worked with early, we co-founded companies together. When I left CoreLogic and went back to First American, I think we brought 40 people with us. So real advantage to have those deep relationships and that deep level of community. Think of it as an advantage for sure.
Yeah, it's something that kind of is missing in my life. And what's funny that my wife did even more countries than me. She lived in Saudi, in Kuwait, and we met overseas in different countries. We dated overseas. And so she's American. She moved back after 37 years overseas. And she's like me. She has culture shock. She doesn't know anybody. And we both move here like orphans. And it's so different than being so much grounded in community with kids that grow up in the same place and having both friends and colleagues. So, and I see that sense that of groundedness and connection that come. And maybe that helped you to be like a people first person too. What do you think? Can you connect that two dots?
Yeah, I mean, I think again that we brought in a lot of people that we had good relationships with. And in some environments, some businesses, they don't like that, right? That you don't hire your friends. I had a very different perspective and then a very different experience, right? We had surrounded ourselves. I mean, fortunately, had friends that were very high achievers and incredibly accomplished. But my perspective was if you're straight and upfront with folks around expectations, it's far easier to have conversations with people that you know and love than with a total stranger. And so when I look at how we built the data analytics business that became CoreLogic and how we grew things that we did at First American, those were really tight knit relationships of high performers that worked really, really well.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? We see places that go into nepotism. And so there are two sides to that, right? It depends on the culture, depends how you apply that. I remember that when I applied it when I was a CEO in a large company, we had that policy you can bring a friend, you refer, because we know that when people bring, they will bring people that are really good. Nobody wants to bring to organization somebody that is not. So I think that policy worked for us very good. We give even financial rewards to people that brought their friends, and it's better than bringing somebody from the outside that we don't know. So I'm curious, let's circle back to that talent, because when we look at this old notion, almost cliche of having the right people on the bus, and given what you said that actually it's a leading indicator, well, what do you think differently than other organizations, other companies, other tech companies to make sure you have the right people on the bus?
Yeah, I mean, I think the clarity of just the purpose and direction of the business. I mean, people want to really be able to understand how the work that they do all day long fits into a strategy and a vision and what success looks like. And I think you were a CEO of a large company. I think my role of the CEO is raising and deploying capital, setting vision and strategy, building culture and ethos, and then frankly, controlling the pace. Because this is a pretty early stage business and you could really burn the whole company out. And so as a senior leadership team, we spend a lot of time together really making sure we have those elements nailed and having leaders that other people I always say leadership requires followership, right? Like you might have a title, but you lead by your person, not by your position. If people are not willing to follow and line up and go in a direction, then likely you've got either weak leaders or you've done a poor job communicating strategy and vision. I've just been very fortunate, very blessed. I work with a team of really high performing leaders that run the company, and we're generally really aligned. I mean, we love healthy tension, but when we're aligned, then the entire organization, I think we cover the country in what we do in commercial real estate in all 50 states. I think we have employees in maybe 20. And with Zoom and Teams, it's helpful, but you really need good codified processes and strong leadership. And we're fortunate to have both.
You mentioned that part of your role is to control the pace. Is it true actually that the CEO can control the pace?
Yeah, man, I think you can help the organization, one, not be distracted. And I didn't always do that very well. I mean, we had a lot of things we wanted to accomplish. And I think we could have done a better job rank ordering and deciding the few that we were really going to put our shoulder behind. So you can get burned out and distracted pretty easily. I think in the last 3 or 4 years as a team, and I don't give myself that credit, as our leadership team, we've done a marvelous job there. Really understand. It's all market and client driven, where we're going, how we're going to get there, and what are we really going to work on. That's, super, super important. And the pace piece, we're blessed with an amazing dev team and developers, man, like to code at 10 o'clock at night and drink Mountain Dew. Our teams don't do that. That's not the game plan here. We don't want to burn people out. We're running a marathon, not a quarter mile. And the end state and the end game, we know doesn't happen next month or even next year. It's a big market. It's a $4.5 billion market in commercial real estate due diligence for what we do. There's 300,000 suspect firms that ought to be client of ours. And we've got about 1,200 customers today. So there's a long way to go. And we love a really tight roadmap, but that roadmap isn't endless. We're pretty surgical on what we focus on. And so that's where I think we do a good job controlling the pace.
Yeah, you mentioned that you have healthy tension. What do you mean by healthy tension? What is that for you?
I think that's the whole diversity thing. I mean, if you hire everybody that thinks like you and acts like you and talks like you and looks like you, probably don't come out with the best answers and the best results. So we've got a really diverse team from a lot of different backgrounds that have different lenses. And we look at the same situation in the market or in the company, and we've got different perspectives. And we put all that out on the table and talk about it. Our management meetings and leadership meetings are not just yes men and yes women checking boxes. We really, because we have to make decisions on where we're going to deploy capital, on who we're going to hire, on what we're going to invest in the technology, on what business we're going to acquire and roll up. We've done all that. And not everybody marches to, yes, this is exactly what we're going to do. So that, I think that's pretty, in a family, in a business, those are really healthy things to ultimately come out with the right answer. And so we encourage pushing people and asking the hard questions, and it works.
And when people bring those different lenses and different perspectives to the table, how do you eventually align them, or how did the team itself, align all these different perspective lens? It's not that easy. I mean, tension is a soft word. It can be also sometimes conflicts when people get a strong, grounded belief that their perspective is the right one for the organization. So what happened when you have like 2 or 3 even directions and people disagree with each other because they believe that their direction is the right one?
Yeah, we've had it happen a bit. Ultimately, I think it works itself out. And ultimately, at the end of the day, with no arrogance, I'm the ultimate arbiter. So we're going to all talk about it. We're going to collectively make a decision. But where there is a couple of paths to take, I've got to make a decision to take the path that is in the best interest of the company, our employees, our clients, and ultimately our investors. And so we've had that. I mean, we've gone through some internal platform consolidation, and we had a group that was really clear on, we want to build this. And we had another group that was pretty clear on, we're going to implement this other existing platform. And at the end of the day, the ROI, the investment, they were relatively similar. But ultimately, the thing that made the best decision for me was, we're going to use our dev resources on an internal production fulfillment platform that doesn't endear and entangle the client and doesn't drive revenue. We're not doing that. So even though the financial model looked similar, we had to make the tough decision there. I wouldn't have been able to do that without everybody servicing all of the potential issues, well memorialized and documented reasons for why they wanted to go in each direction. But ultimately, we've made that decision. And this team's been together 7 years as a senior leadership team. So it's been cool.
So the group that in the senior leadership team that their direction was not chosen, how do you bring them along the new direction?
They brought themselves along. They got it. I mean, these were not so diabolically opposed. Both groups really could see the other perspective. And I think that we've done a good job. These guys do a great job of checking their ego at the door. And yes, they want to help us advance our agenda, but not with their own personal agenda. And I think we've done a really good job having few personal agendas here. We're marching together to achieve an objective. And I think in a company, when you raise tens of millions of outside capital, you got a lot of other people's money. And so these decisions become super critical in terms of valuations of the business and where you want to arrive. So we don't take them lightly, but thank God so far, we've not had any detractors that have caused us any significant pain. I think also when you do this long enough together, I mean, look at this team, like a lot of company, like every company out there that's been around for 7 years, you went through COVID, right? You went through a really crazy time there. And then in the real estate world, when you came out of COVID, you had 0% interest rates. And then Jay Powell went straight vertical to 5.5%, and transactions dropped by 50%. I mean, our business was massively impacted by external things that we can't control. And I always say, look, I love to be optimistic. I hate to be optimistic about things I can't control. That was a great example in both residential and commercial real estate of markets and volumes that were massively impacted. And our team got together and said, look, here's the deal. Calm seas make lousy sailors. Look, we got this. We're going to navigate through this because there's no choice. We got to get to the other end. And it made us better. So when we have these kind of things come up now, and we can look at 7 years of working together in our history, and we've navigated a lot of stuff.
So it seems that the people that their direction was not chosen as a future direction at least felt heard and not like they were forced. There was this notion, disagree and commit, but many times people disagree and commit, but they feel that they were forced to do that. And I get a sense from you that you go through a process that eventually bring everybody on board by say, hey, we listen, eventually we need to choose one direction, we cannot do both. And that creates a sense of alignment when you move forward.
Yes, well said.
Are you working remote or you work from office?
Well, so our headquarters is here up in Sacramento, and we've got 25 or so folks here, but then we've got people all over the country, and I'm in the office.
But most of the work, but the senior leadership team work together, or they are scattered around the US?
Yeah, around the Akron, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida. So all around the US, the whole team's all around the US. So we get together frequently, but we do a lot via Zoom and Teams and like other companies do.
It's interesting because there's kind of this rush back to the office. I see it here in Silicon Valley, but companies don't want remote. And during COVID, there was such a huge shift. My whole neighborhood actually changed in like 1 year. Many people left remote because they could work remotely. New people came because of schools, young. So now it's kind of that hybrid. How do you work actually I find it very difficult when some of the people work together in the same office and some remotely. When everybody remote is easier because we work all remotely. When everybody in the office is also easier. That combination, how do you overcome that? Some people are close to you, some people far away from you.
Well, I think I read a book. It was called Virtual Leadership 15 or 18 years ago because we had to at CoreLogic. I think I had 70 people and 10 of them were with me. The rest were around the country and many of them out of their homes. And so you had to kind of get good at that, even pre-COVID and pre-hybrid. But I was in the camp post-COVID of let's everybody be back to the office 5 days a week. And I studied both sides of the equation and I thought this was my perspective. Okay. And here's a great example of the healthy tension. I do every other month what we call a collab and calf. One member from each functional area. We get on the phone. We talk about what's working, what's not working. What do we start doing? What do we stop doing? And on 3 or 4 of them in a row, when people talked about what they loved about this business, they loved leadership, they loved the direction, they loved the impact they were having. At the end of the day, the flexibility to pick their child up from school, to go do a workout in the morning, to go see something at noon, like our performance and productivity went skyrocket when we did hybrid. I don't know if there's butts in seats. I don't know that somebody's in their chair from 8 to 5. All I know is our productivity is through the roof. And almost on every one of those calls, every one of those folks said, thank you so much. We love this environment, that I couldn't eat it. And there's no mandate or edict that would make sense, right? Everybody loved it.
Yeah. I remember a talk by Daniel Pink years ago, but this sense of autonomy that people have is like the strongest motivator, more than money. I remember I watched it 15 years ago, and I thought that's very interesting. Yeah. And that notion of working remotely give that sense of autonomy. If you have a meeting, nobody knows what you're doing, right? So it's also create like a trust relationship, right? It's very difficult to measure productivity of people, but you get a sense that people are active, productive, and so on.
Yeah, in each of our functional areas, I mean, we have, I think, really good productivity measures. Probably the poster child is sales. I mean, it's pretty clear MQLs and SQLs and the size of your pipeline and how many deals get closed and what your revenue. If the activity's not happen and I don't have to micromanage the activity, then the revenue is not going to happen and the results don't happen. So we can measure that. And the remote thing, when you're, again, hundreds of miles away, is different. It's always weird to me when people live 7 miles from the office and they come in 3 days a week or 2 days a week, but we totally allow it. I think the collaboration that we have when they're here is great. I think that's harder when you're starting your career. My youngest daughter graduated from UCSB in Santa Barbara. And in her first job, it was great, but it was 100% remote. She said, look, I can't do this. I don't want to work from my bedroom. I'm 23 years old. I need to be in an office. And today she works for Salesforce in San Francisco, and she's in the office almost every day. And it's made a big difference. I think early in your career, being able to have the water cooler talk, have a cup of coffee, get on a whiteboard, that's a much bigger deal.
Yeah, I can see that. I work from home. My wife works at school and she's a teacher, and she had that connection that I don't have. That not so every time that I go for an offsite to work with the leadership, they say, yes, out of my home, go somewhere, sit with people. I spend the whole day with people, but there's something in that connection that, so do you bring the team together physically a few times a year to?
We do. And so do some of the underlying teams. So a manager will bring their folks. We've got a group going into Akron next week. We've got an office in Akron, and they'll bring their team in. So we certainly try to do that as frequently as we can, particularly at the leadership level.
Earlier, you mentioned that one of the things that you really focus on is to create that clarity. And right now, where we are in this age of AI, there's so much unclarity about the impact. It's a disruptor for everyone in tech right now. So how do you actually bring clarity when we are kind of an exponential curve here that nobody even understands what's the impact tomorrow? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the uncertainty that it brings? And yeah, what is that for you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, no question, the large language models and AI and all these agents, I mean, they're transforming, and you use the word disrupting some industries. I do think, and I'm super happy about this, our industry is a little bit insulated. And so that's one aspect. The other is we've got a great CTO, Chris Harrell, who's brilliant, who, in fact, Friday we have an AI summit internally. We've started the implementation of this all over the place. But when I say we're a little insulated, if you think about a lot of what we do, we've got a great tech platform called Radius that's a order management workflow platform. But a lot of it is services, right? Think of an appraisal. Somebody goes out to a property to do an appraisal. Somebody goes out to a property to do an environmental assessment or a property condition assessment or an Alta survey. Those services are compulsory and they're very regulated, lots of compliance there. So the disruption of some of that probably doesn't happen as expeditiously in our world. We think it'll be evolution and not revolution in our space. In the areas where we're tech forward, we're implementing AI all over the place. And part of the Friday's summit will be to rank order and give clarity to this whole organization about what we're going to bite off and what we're not.
Yeah. Well, if you're right, then it's really create clarity when you feel that you're insulated. If you're wrong with this insulation, then it can be very disruptive in a very bad way. So, for example, my middle son is a CTO of a startup that he founded, and he works in a very highly regulated space of healthcare. But he actually leveraged because the ability of AI to navigate that highly regulated with physical people. It's not like a tech. You deal with like providing for service provider of nurses, home care, and so on. So I hope that you're right in that you're insulated, and maybe that some kind of realization will happen during that AI summit. But I'll give an example. One of my clients is a chief product officer in a company that listed, and they feel the whole board was very disturbed by the fact that SaaS platform companies that listed on NASDAQ, their value dropped by 25% 2 months ago. And he said, nothing changed. Our product works. We are in a great shape, but just the fact alone put a lot of pressure from the board about what? We don't see the sign yet for anything. It's just like investor expectations in NASDAQ, right? So it's very confusing.
Yes.
Right. It's just positioning as a SaaS, but they are already doing AI. So it's like the position, because you're a SaaS, that's why your shares go down. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think both enterprise and SaaS got hit hard on valuation because of the potential disruption and threat of AI. I look at CREtelligent, we're really a tech-enabled services business. And so again, while we'll have customer content that's AI driven, Radius today, we have an AI agent called Crea, takes 70% of our customer questions. Used to be zero. So we now save human manpower because we've deployed that agent. We've deployed other agents internally to help us with efficiency, and we'll continue with that. But I think I've been in mortgage a long time, and I heard about drone appraisals 20 years ago, not happening today. We heard about blockchain and ledger 20 years ago, going to take over the whole title industry, not happening today. We heard about electronic mortgage. Mortgages are going to be done in 3 days. That was in 2003. Still takes 45 days. The level of regulatory compliance and the Mortgage Bankers Association and the NAR and the American Land Title, a lot of lobbying, a lot of money. It's like turning the Titanic. So I only say that, and I'm not naive. Like, look, there will be AI implementation to some of the things that we're doing for sure, but some of those services, they're going to live. So we'll see how Friday goes.
Funny, I started my career in finance. So I grew all the way to be a CFO of a very large semiconductor company. And then I became COO and then CEO. But remember, more than 20 years ago, as a CFO, I predicted that we won't have any more finance people in organizations in 10 years. And I went and spoke on stages about that this is like why we have all this platform fully automated. Guess what? I'm still coaching CFOs that do exactly the same what I did. And they have teams that do treasury and accounting and AR. And I said, oh, I was so wrong. Highly regulated,
Yeah.
SEC, all kind of stuff that sometimes is very dangerous to make predictions and even being vocal about them. I
Right.
feel very embarrassed about it.
That's great. That's great.
Good. So what is the one thing that we haven't spoken about that you think that is important to bring to our audience?
Well, I think in here, I mean, when the elephant in the room is these geopolitical risks right now. I mean, things that are so far outside of your control, less local economy or US economy. It's these geopolitical incidents that you just don't know how they're going to impact the business world. And so you can hope and you can pray, but you got to be really mindful. I don't know that there's a ton of action to take, but just being aware of those as you think about mortgage rates, it's the 10-year treasury and the Fed funds rate. And those things dramatically change the external environment in our business. And those things change when the economy is going up or down. Or so that issue to me, we're watching very closely. I'm sure you're watching what's happening very closely. And I'm not just talking about Iran, but what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and the investments here. And so those things are way outside of our control and in the external environment, but we talk about them a lot and think about, okay, what could happen and what would we do as a company if the economics change dramatically?
Yeah. Well, I was promoted to CEO in the same year of the 2008, right after the 2008 crisis, and leveraged that actually because we went to a different direction of e-commerce at the time. But thank you for bringing it. I woke up in the morning, I told my wife, you see, something is very weird. I meet people all day long, CEOs, C-suite. Nobody talks about the geopolitical and the situation right now. Like, it's like a taboo, it's like, I said, how is it possible? I told you're the only one that I talk about it. I will tell her tonight that I spoke with you about it. It's like people either don't want to talk about it or afraid or think that it's too polarized or too political, but it's a war. I mean, like, how can you not talk about a war that your country actually participates right now and the impact that will make on economy, on everything, lives? Nobody. It's like funny, even with peers, colleagues that we have meetings, nobody talk about it. I find it pretty weird, actually.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. I hope it gets over with expeditiously and a lot of lives are spared for sure. It's,
You sure you have two kids that are kind of post-college right now, right?
yes.
And I have three post-college, all of them like now 2 in the 30s. And what did you learn from parenting? How did you translate it, parenting into leadership or the other way around? What is that for you to connect the two?
Well, and I give my wife all the credit or so much of the credit with our daughters, but she grew up in an environment with a sister about the same age. And there was a lot of friction and a lot of arguing and pretty common among siblings. I look at my daughters, they're 2 years apart. I don't know that I've ever seen them fight. And they're now almost 30 and 28 or 29 and 27. And they're best friends. And they have been their entire lives. They live a block apart in San Francisco. One works for Ernst & Young, the other works for Salesforce. And so, yeah, that level of support and endorsement and promotion and camaraderie, and that works in families and it works really well in business as well. I can't believe how many people that you don't know the name of your colleague's spouse and you've worked together for years. You don't know if they have children or not. You don't know their hobby. I mean, we take that pretty serious because that's how you get to know people and you get intimate enough to care. And then you're willing to go to battle together. So yeah, running a business, a lot of similarities.
So I just found out that I messed up. In the last episode, I started a new tradition that every CEO leaves a message to the next guest on the show. And the previous one actually left you the question and I didn't write it down. So I don't remember what he asked you, so we'll skip that, but I will ask you, I will promise to everybody right now I will start to take care of that for the next one. I'd love you to leave a question to the next guest on the show. What it will be, that question?
Well, I would say, what is the one thing in your business that you're not doing today that if you did would make the biggest impact? That could be financial, could be culture, could be hiring process, could be customers. What's the one thing?
Beautiful. I'm trying to extract the question from AI. Maybe you'll find it in a transcript, but if it will come,
All right.
I won't let you quickly off the hook, but it's not coming. So
That's all right.
So, Anthony, thank you so much for your time. It was a lovely conversation. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
David, thank you. I've enjoyed it as well. It's nice getting to know you.